All right, I got a meeting in 15 minutes, so I don't have a ton of time, but just wanted to give some quick thoughts on the Lakers game last night. Lakers got blown out by the Utah Jazz. The Lakers actually split the series 1-1 with them, this two-game mini series, but when the Lakers won, Utah didn't have Gobert or Mike Conley playing. So last night, obviously, it was a lot different. They had two guys in their starting five playing, and it was a fucking blowout. First of all, if you were on Lakers Twitter, the whole Vivian catfish situation was absolutely out of control. One of the funniest fucking nights I've ever been on Twitter. But I'm not going to get into that. I just want to get into some of my thoughts from the game. Big picture, look, I'm a little bit concerned. Like, I'm a tiny bit concerned on what the defense is going to look like versus Utah. And look, Frank Vogel is a defensive genius. He has forgotten more defense than I have even learned. But the thing that I keep seeing with the way we guard the Jazz is that when the Jazz run pick and roll, the Lakers employ this scheme basically called a catch hedge, where it's not drop coverage, but it's basically like there will be moments in the pick and roll where your big and the guard who are guarding the pick and roll are going to both be kind of pressing up on the ball for a bit and trying to get the ball handler to basically trying to suffocate the ball handler. The problem with that type of defense, at least what I'm seeing in the few games, is that, and this dates back to even the first time the Lakers played the Jazz when LeBron was healthy. The problem with that type of defense is that it seems like it leaves a lot of 4-on-3 opportunities for the Jazz. And the Jazz have a shit ton of three-point shooters, and they got five guys that can run the pick and roll. So let's think about who the Jazz have, right? They got Donovan Mitchell, who can run the pick and roll, Mike Conley, who can run the pick and roll, Jordan Clarkson off the bench, who can run the pick and roll, Joe Ingles, who can run the pick and roll, and then Bogdanovich, who can run the pick and roll. So that's five dudes that can run the pick and roll. And the entire Jazz offensive scheme is basically, we got five dudes who can handle and shoot, and we got one dude who's huge on the inside that you have to collapse on. That is a problem, and that is a really, really hard thing to stop, and I don't know if you're going to stop it playing defense the way the Lakers have been playing. Now, I could be saying all these things, and then you bring up the film from last night, and it looks like the Lakers were barely even running and not closing out hard. So, look, maybe it's not about scheme. Maybe it's just about effort, and the guys did look really tired last night. Trez, in particular, has been looking really worn down the last month or so. I think he needs to rest a week. Keith, in the last few games, has looked a little bit worn out ever since he sprained his ankle, so I think he needs to rest for a bit. So I understand, like, the guys weren't playing super hard last night, but it is demoralizing when you're giving up a lot of threes. And I feel like the way the defense is structured against the Jazz, like the Lakers' base defense, I feel like it gave up a lot of threes against the Jazz. Like, it was two guys on the ball. All of a sudden, the ball gets swing, cross-court pass, wide open three. It was just a lot of fucking threes coming out of that. And look, in the playoffs, you're going to get more fans in the stands. The pressure's on. You do have to wonder how many of these threes are going to drop. But with that being said, they've been shooting well all season long. So in the playoffs, are you still going to play that type of scramble defense where you're just closing out and giving up open threes? I just don't know if that is a viable option. And that's probably the biggest thing that concerned me. I'm not putting a ton of weight in the game because Bron and AD were out, blah, blah, blah. Donovan Mitchell was out for them. Like, we understand that it wasn't like a full health versus full health type of game. But from the three games the Lakers have played against the Jazz, I just don't like the amount of three-point shots that they're getting up. And someone could pull up the stats, maybe correct me on that. Just from watching the game, it just seems like we're giving up a lot of threes, and the contests are sort of late, and it's because we're always in a scramble. I do wonder, like, Vogel is a guy who saves his shit for the playoffs. Like, he won't make adjustments in game very often, but he'll make adjustments in the playoffs. I do wonder if Vogel ends up moving to a switch defense against the Jazz, because although they got a lot of guys that can handle off the pick and roll, like, I feel great about guarding Rudy Gobert one-on-one in the post. Like, he doesn't have a lot of post moves. He gets pretty much most of his points off of, like, offensive rebounds, dunks, lobs, stuff like that, dump-off passes. So he's not really like a post-up guy. So I do feel like you can get away with putting a smaller guy on him for a bit. And the Jazz do have Conley and Mitchell and Clarkson who can kind of break you off the dribble, but is it easier to just play them in a switch defense? Because in a switch defense, they're not going to get the step on you all the time off of the screen and roll. You're running off the screen and roll. You're always generating advantage if you're playing a team that's not switching. If you switch, okay, maybe they try to isolate your weaker defender. The Lakers don't have a lot of weak one-on-one defenders. So I feel like a switch defense, and maybe that's something the Vogel's saving for the playoffs against certain matchups, because I felt like last year they switched a little bit against the Rockets too. Maybe the switch defense is what he's going to use against the Jazz, because if you switch, all of a sudden it just becomes a game of ISO. And that's what Utah actually doesn't want to play. Utah doesn't want to play ISO ball, believe it or not. It may seem like they do. They don't. What they want to do is they want to play pick and roll the entire time and just keep the defense moving, and then it's just open three, lob dunk, lob dunk, lob dunk. That's the style of basketball they want to play. They don't want to play ISO one-on-one. That shit is hard, man. The only team that wants to play ISO one-on-one is the Brooklyn Nets and pretty much the Clippers. So I feel like maybe Vogel may need to break out a switch defense against the Jazz in the playoffs. And look, who the fuck am I? I'm not the coach of the Lakers, right? Like, I don't know nearly as much basketball as Vogel. I'm just a fan spitballing. But that's just kind of what I had in mind, because watching those 3 games, that was my biggest concern. It just seemed like, man, we just give up a lot of threes, and that seemed to be a scheme issue, because the Jazz are too good at moving the ball around for you to kind of play them with the same scheme. So that's my biggest concern from the game. I don't think it's fair to just say they're going to start missing these threes in the playoffs. I don't think that's fair. I do think Utah has a chance of coming out the West. Like, they're a really, really fucking good team. So the question now is, are they the 2015 Hawks or are they the 2014 Spurs? I don't know. But the way they're playing right now and the way they're shooting the threes, look, one more thing on the switch defense. If you start switching, right, you're asking guys like Joe Ingles to start breaking you off the dribble. He's older, he's slower, he's not going to be able to do that as much. Same as Bogdanovich, he's much older, he's slower. Mitchell can do that, but he's small, and he's coming off an injury. And then Conley can do it, but he's also small. And then Clarkson can do it, but he's having a great season. But I've watched him play for a while now. I do have my concerns where it's like, hey, if you just put him one-on-one against somebody, I think you can guard Jordan Clarkson pretty well. I think he's getting a lot of his points off of the swing of the offense, getting some open threes, and then running pick and roll and creating advantage. I think if you switch everything and all of a sudden those open passes are gone and now it's just mano-y-mano, I think he'll shoot you out of a ball game if you let him. So I think that's how the Lakers got to scheme against the Jazz. Those are just my thoughts. Agree or disagree, I'm open for discussion. And the last thing I want to talk about, actually last 2 things. So one, KCP looks like he's starting to figure it out. This feels real now. So when he was shooting hot at the beginning of the season, I was like, man, this is crazy. But he was so hot from the 3-point line that you're just like, there's no way you're going to keep shooting like this. You'd be the greatest shooter of all time. So that one felt a little bit like a brief hot streak. Then he went through one of the coldest streaks I've ever seen. Now he's back, but this one feels more real because he's already gone through that cold streak. And now it feels like he's kind of gone through that mental struggle, and now he's back. We saw this last year with KCP where he went through that mental struggle at the beginning of the season. It seems like once he goes through his mental struggle and he breaks free, he's usually pretty stable. Not saying he's going to shoot 60% from 3, but he can be a stable high 30s guy. He's been playing super confident ever since they got Ben McLemore. He's been playing super confident. His defense is much better. He's flying around. He's launching that 3 with reckless abandon. I love the way he's playing, and that's a big silver lining from this stretch, especially from last night. The other guy I want to talk about is Talen Horton-Tucker. Oh my goodness, 24 points, career high. Actually left a few points at the line because he's a pretty good free throw shooter. He only shot 5 of 7 last night, but he's an 82% free throw shooter, I believe, on the season. When I watch THT right now, this is why I was always advocating to not trade him no matter what. I'm like, you got to keep him because this kid is going to be special. And when you're a team like the Los Angeles Lakers and you don't have a lot of trade assets and you're in win now mode with veterans, anytime you can get a youngster who might show some serious flashes of being ready, you got to see what that youngster has. And I know popular opinion is to trade the youngster for someone else, but based on what he's getting paid right now, you can't just trade him for another star. And I don't consider Kyle Lowry like the star that they need. Kyle Lowry's a really good player, but THT right now, is night and day from a month ago. A month ago, when he got the ball in the offense, I was really worried. I was always on the edge of my seat. Like, I wanted him to get a ton of playing time, but I'm like, man, he's going to turn it over. Is he going to take a bad shot? He's going to get himself in trouble in traffic. And that's what he was doing a lot. And then defensively, I was always on the edge of my seat because I'm like, man, he's going to miss a rotation. Like, who's he? Like, which defensive assignment is he going to blow this time? Now, all of a sudden, I'm watching him. He low-key, in this last stretch, has been one of our best defenders. Like, literally, guys do not score on him. Jaylen Brown did score on him a few times, but that Jaylen Brown just went off that entire game. We just weren't covering Jaylen Brown. But guys are scared to put the ball on the floor in front of him because his hands are so big and his arms are so long that if he gets even a fingertip on the ball, his fingers are like this fucking long, so he might just rip that shit from you. That's what I'm seeing with THT is defensively at the point of attack, he looks really good. And then in terms of team defense and rotations, he's not blowing assignments anymore. He's making the right reads and he's stealing. He's like averaging 2 steals a game or something in this recent stretch. I got to fact check myself on that, but I heard that from Lakers Nation, I believe. Trevor Lane. He right now, like when guys will swing it and they'll drive in and they'll try to kick, they are not able to throw the kick out pass against him because his arms are so fucking long that he's intercepting a lot of those passes. So defensively, he's been really steady right now, which is crazy. That improvement in the last month has been insane, man. And then offensively, I'm really, like, my heart's not pounding anymore when he has the ball on offense. Like now, when he doesn't have anything, he dribbles it out and he resets the offense. He kicks it back out. It's like a little switch went off where he understands how to get himself into traffic, get out, and then reset the offense. He's not getting the ball picked off anymore. His handles look really tight, really smooth. His finishing ability is great, and he's shooting the 3 ball with much more confidence. His percentage still isn't great, but he's shooting that thing confidently, and he's adding some more tricks to his bag, or he's showing off some new tricks in his bag. Like the turnaround, he's showing off. He hit one last night where he hit like turnaround bank shot, and then he hit another turnaround on one of the Jazz young players in his face. Rainbow shot went in. He's showing a new arsenal of scoring and just moves and confidence that I haven't seen before. 24 points. I mean, silver lining was him. I thought he was the best Laker last night. He has been balling, and this is huge because the leap that he took from the beginning of this season, like think about what he was like in the bubble where he got that brief run against the Rockets. Think about that leap till now. And he didn't really have a full offseason of development. He didn't really have a lot of practices under his belt. Think about what's going to happen next year. If he takes this same leap next year that he took now, full offseason, working with Phil Handy, working with shooting coaches, continuing to refine that jumper. I think right now he's still shooting with his palms. Refine the jumper, tighten his handle a little bit more, add some more in-between game, some more floaters that he's been demonstrating, utilize that left more. What he's going to do next season is going to be crazy. It's going to be fucking crazy, I promise you. He'll turn 21 next season. He'll be 21 years old doing this stuff. That is why Pelinka and the rest of Lakers Nation, or not Lakers Nation, because a lot of you motherfuckers wanted to trade him, but that's why Pelinka in the front office and LeBron and Clutch, they're like, do not trade this guy, because what he can become is really scary. He is unstoppable going to the rim right now. You cannot stop him going to the rim, and you know he's only going to go to the rim. You can't stop him. So he can shoot an open jumper anytime he wants. Imagine once he tightens everything up and he can hit that jumper consistently, and you got to go out and guard that jumper. It's game over. He's going to get to the free throw line 6-7 times a night. I mean, he is a menace, man. The leap he's taken has been fantastic. He gets better with every single game. So that's probably my biggest takeaway in terms of individual players. But overall, number one concern is just more so the defensive scheme against the Jazz. It seems prone to giving up a lot of open threes, which I just don't think that's the way you got to play them. I think you got to switch. But I think that's something that he's saving. But welcome all discussions. Hope you guys enjoy the video.
Man, they try to do me dirty. Heard it from a birdie.